Wow. This She-Hulk show looks like an amusing romp. I will watch this to get away from the preachy socio-political messaging that saturates almost every TV show and movie I attempt to enjoy.
Deep inside, that night we come alive.
She-Hulk is awful. Anyone capable of even basic critical thinking knew that before the first episode aired. She-Hulk is brutally and shamelessly awful. It's just another tired old feminist diatribe filled with the usual cliches. When She-Hulk isn't preachy and annoying, it's just fucking boring. She-Hulk is the same deconstructionist filth you've seen 100 times by now. If you've seen Disney Star Wars, modern Star Trek, Captain Marvel, Batwoman, Ghostbusters 2016, Doctor Who, or if you're one of the 5 people that saw Charlie's Angels, the bad one, not the good one, then you've seen She-Hulk. Or at least you've seen the various corpses from which this Frankenstein's monster of an atrocity has been pieced together. Not incidentally, the CGI abomination that calls itself She-Hulk is far more monstrous than Frankenstein's monster. If corporate feminism bred with Frankenstein's monster, then got bitten by a radioactive vampire mere hours before giving birth, the creature that emerged from her womb would be some approximation of whatever the hell that is. She-Hulk is such a lazy, generic feminist diatribe that it could have been written by an AI forced to study and analyze feminist cinema after its suicide function had been disabled. This TV show is just a rehash of the same feminist bilge that has been spewing out of cinema and TV screens for the past 10 years. And it follows the exact same pattern. Take something that was done by a man before and have a strong, powerful woman do it better.
Feel it. He's gonna toss the boulder, not a big deal.
And of course, the men need to be put in their place and deconstructed so that the women will look good in comparison to the pathetic, trembling wimps that might once have been called men.
We're screwed, aren't we? Pretty much.
Come with me if you want to live. Come with me if you want to be lectured about your male privilege.
Women are angels, men are predators, women are victims. The strong, powerful, stunning, and brave female lead is way better at everything than the man who thought he was hot shit, etc., etc. In this video, I'm just going to examine a few of the most egregious aspects of She-Hulk Episode 1, because if I were to go over everything that is wrong with this show, I would still be working on this video cometh the rapture. Let's first have a look at how men are depicted and the kind of feminist messaging that consumes any chance this show ever had of being likable. There's a scene where She-Hulk is waiting outside a bar and a group of good old boys roll up and attempt a friendly interaction with her. She-Hulk feels threatened by their toxic, boisterous, masculine behavior and begins to walk away. They walk after her, like a pack of ravenous wolves hunting their prey. Feeling justifiably threatened by the presence of these men, she hulks out and is ready to enact justice on behalf of every girl ever to be approached by a man, when Hulk suddenly jumps out of the trees and stops her from literally murdering 4 people. What exactly is the message here? That women should be outraged when men try to talk to them and are justified in attacking those men?
Hello.
Should a man be punished just for talking to a woman?
I am tired of wasting my life watching pornographic videos. I am done with this filth. I want to find a nice girl in the real world, and build a loving, intimate relationship with her. I am looking forward to my new life as a man that pursues meaning and purpose in his sexual relationships, instead of pointless encounters that are entirely hedonistic. Perhaps I will find a nice girl in this bar. Hello. My name is
Should men never approach women? Never show their sexual interest and walk around the world like dickless mannequins pretending that they don't find any woman attractive ever? Here's a scene you would never see in a mainstream TV show today.
How you doing?
Because in this scene, a man, worse, a straight white man, no less, is flirting with a woman. And you can't do that anymore, because apparently expressing any sort of sexual interest in a woman is now sexist and rapey. Here's a great Oscar Wilde quote. There is only one thing in the world worse than being talked about, and that is not being talked about. And you know what's worse for a girl than some average, basically drunk, losery guy making a clumsy attempt at flirting with her? Not being approached by any guy ever. A woman might not like to get approached by guys she doesn't like, but she'll feel a hell of a lot worse after spending 2 hours getting ready to go out with a friend, then watching younger, prettier girls get all the attention from the men while she gets left to rot in a corner all night and then takes to the dance floor to try to force a good time through the despair before stumbling home in an agony of exhaustion at 12:30 a.m. when in her younger days she could have lasted until 4 a.m., then spending the next day swiping right on alpha chads on Tinder, only to be disappointed when she meets one that night and realizes that his photo is at least 4 years old and his gym bro period is clearly in the past, to put it politely. How the fuck do you think that's going to feel at the age of 35? Look, feminism, I know that being the object of attraction to cringy losers can be awkward and unpleasant.
You really think that is gonna impress me?
It should.
Money doesn't fucking impress me.
Well,
I'm
you
sorry.
lost
It does
in
not
life.
impress me.
Then you lost in life. $92,802.
But that's part of the price you pay to eventually meet a good man, a real man.
Courtney, you're gonna have the peanut butter soup with smoked duck and mashed squash. New York Matinee called it a playful but mysterious little dish. You'll love it.
I'm not going to go into depth about the CGI. I'll just say that I have honestly seen much better in cosplay costumes, and the CGI gets worse in episodes 2 and 3, especially when She-Hulk is talking. It looks weird, unnatural, and freaky. The CGI is actually the only thing I like about the show because it's laughably terrible. CGI She-Hulk at least gives the show a bit of character. If the CGI was, good, it would just make the show even more generic. So Bruce brings She-Hulk to Mexico to try to help her come to terms with her new Hulk identity, deal with this now very dangerous condition, and plan for the future. Unsurprisingly, it turns out that she's amazing at everything, and she don't need no man to mansplain her life to her. This whole Mexico scene is just boring because she's not up against anything and has no challenges to overcome. She has nothing new or important to learn because she can already do it all, so there's no tension, struggle, build-up, or payoff. Imagine a Rocky montage was like this. Let's take Rocky 3 as an example. Not my favorite Rocky movie, but a good show. After Rocky loses to Clubber Lang, he agrees to go with Apollo Creed to retrain and retool. Apollo Creed takes him back to the street, to the shitty, sweaty, stinking gyms where impoverished men train in the hopes of making it as fighters and providing a decent life for their families. Here, Apollo teaches Rocky how to dance, swim, run, move, evade shots, stick and move. He helps him get his confidence back. He's trying to help him get his killer instinct back and believe that he can win the rematch. Apollo also puts Rocky through the basically physical torture that is necessary to get in elite fighting shape. It's a great part of the movie and one we can all relate to because we've all been there. We've all fucked something important up, felt awful about it, and needed help to recover from it. It's also compelling to watch Rocky improve over time as he works his ass off, cheered on by Apollo. His victory at the end of the movie feels earned because of it. Now imagine that Rocky goes to the shithole gym and does everything better than Apollo. Apollo tries to show him how to dance. Rocky ends up embarrassing him by dancing way better. Apollo wants him to swim. Rocky swims like a national champion. Apollo spars with him. Rocky evades every shot and counters with 2 of his own. Apollo races him on the beach. Rocky leaves him in the dust. Apollo tries to help him get his confidence back, Rocky launches into a rant about how hard his life has been and that some rich asshole like Apollo is the last person he wants advice from. He then tells Apollo he's fucking useless, tells him to get fucked because Rocky's the best and he doesn't need help from anyone. He refuses to train because he's so strong and amazing and he doesn't need to. And anyway, he has an important life to get back to. He can't be wasting time with has-been losers like Apollo Creed. How do you think audiences would react to that? Would Rocky be considered a compelling character or even a good guy? No, he would rightfully be thought of as an asshole. The audience would root against him in the final fight, but for some reason, the She-Hulk showrunners think that if you replace Rocky with a woman, suddenly this scenario becomes highly compelling and everyone will root for her. You would think that after Mulan, the whole Mary Sue Skywalker disaster, Terminator Genesis, and Terminator Dark Flop, Batwoman, and many other shitty films featuring the exact same cookie-cutter strong female character repackaged and resold, that writers would learn the simple lesson that audiences don't like Mary Sue. She is not a popular character, and that's all these various characters I've just mentioned are. They are all the same character, Mary Sue. Rey is Mary Sue with a lightsaber. Batgirl is Mary Sue in a batsuit. Mulan is Mary Sue with a sword. And She-Hulk is Mary Sue after she fell into a vat of radioactive CGI. In 2015, the average movie fan couldn't have told you what Mary Sue even meant. Today, we all know. Because the culture required a word to describe this character that kept reappearing in woke trash, the infallible, invincible female lead that learns new skills in literally seconds, already knows it all to begin with, and destroys every man that attempts to challenge her supremacy. Why is this tired, cliched, has-been trope still around? And that's all Mary Sue is. For all the political undertones and woke messaging, ultimately, it's just a movie trope from the 2010s. One that will die unmourned when the culture inevitably moves on, just like it moved on from the heroic cowboy, the ubermensch muscle man 80s action star, the 90s snag rom-com type, that's sensitive new age guy, by the way, think Hugh Grant or Tom Hanks, the everyman rock star cliche, he makes it, becomes a junkie, gets divorced, gets clean and makes a comeback, and the all-American dad. The She-Hulk writers are behind the times. They think the strong, powerful woman is still in, that it's still cool and edgy. It's kind of sad, actually. It's like a woman in her mid-30s who hasn't really been in the scene over the past few years, showing up to a niece's wedding with a side shave, thinking that she looks all cool and fashionable. And all the younger women have modern cuts, and they're looking at her like, okay, grandma, it's not 2015 anymore. Sorry you didn't get the memo, but yeah, just go stand in that corner and try not to appear in any photos. The She-Hulk writers are producing stuff that is already dated as soon as it's released. There's an aspect of She-Hulk that has not yet received due criticism. The garbage action scene at the end. At the end of episode 1, She-Hulk is forced to take Hulk form to subdue a supervillain that has smashed her way into the courtroom. The scene logistics in the courtroom showdown are awful. They're lazy and make no sense. The supervillain breaks through the wall easily and then does nothing. After smashing through a wall, she seems to struggle to overcome a couple of security guards, and she just stays there struggling with them while She-Hulk faces her moral dilemma of whether or not to Hulk out. Only after She-Hulk takes Hulk form does the villain do anything. There is only one reason the villain just hangs around doing nothing after smashing through the wall. The script needed it. She-Hulk needed the time to make up her mind, so the villain just waited before attacking. Awful amateur writing. Let's have a look at the fight choreography. That's bad. That's really bad. That is worse than Reva's roof-jumping parkour. It's that bad. The CGI sucks, the scene logistics are trash, and the choreography is laughably terrible. Was anyone who worked on this show not an overpaid, underexperienced box ticker? Another element in She-Hulk which does not work is breaking the fourth wall. It is handled very poorly and feels awkward and forced. Let's have a look at a show where fourth wall breaking actually works really well. House of Cards. It works in House of Cards because it is a literal aside. Frank Underwood literally turns to the side, looks down, and speaks to the audience, at least in the early asides when the audience is being introduced to this dramatic device. The acting is also a major factor. Kevin Spacey's more honest and straightforward delivery in the asides contrasts starkly with the bullshit speak of his political persona, which is why it works so well. Tariana Maslani, the woman playing She-Hulk, is an okay actress, but she doesn't have the subtlety and skill of Kevin Spacey. Say what you want about his extracurricular activities, he is a superb actor, and Maslani really can't pull this off. She's talking to the audience the same way she talks to everyone else. When she first did this, I thought the camera was going to cut to the character she was talking to because she uses the exact same tone of voice and body language she uses when talking to her friend in the show. Another reason the asides in House of Cards land well is excellent writing. When Underwood speaks to the audience, he tells us things that he wouldn't say out loud because it would make no sense for him to do so and because they are profoundly personal thoughts. In She-Hulk, her asides are throwaway lines she could comfortably say to the person standing next to her.
God, is this why they hired me? Okay, this sucks. I am totally qualified, but now everyone around here is always going to think this is the only reason I got the job. It's so unfair.
So there is no sense of intimacy or purpose in them. And lastly, the She-Hulk asides don't work because they have no function. Everything she says, the audience already knows. Francis Underwood will say something like,
"From Gaffney, we had our own brand of diplomacy. Shake with your right hand, but hold a rock in your left."
That gives us a clear indication of his motivation and helps with the development of his character. But when She-Hulk says,
I know you can't wait to see Wong. I get it. I just want to make sure that you don't think this is one of those cameo every week type of shows. It's not.
She's just filling space with her, telling us stuff we already know, and doing nothing to develop the story, endear herself to the audience, or flesh out her character. The asides don't do anything. The writers think their use of this Shakespearean dramatic device lends a levity, humor, and wit to the show, but it doesn't. The asides just come off as awkward filler.
If you want to go back to your life as a lawyer, I respect that.
He doesn't mean that.
The most derided, mocked, and criticized scene in this show is the Screed, which is basically infamous at this point. The writers intended this as the episode's emotional centerpiece. It would allow the lead character to state her case, and she would become a sympathetic character who the audience relates to. And it didn't work. At all. In fact, it had the opposite effect. It made She-Hulk look angry, arrogant, and bitchy. If the showrunners wanted an emotional centerpiece, they would lead up to it, often over the course of several episodes or even seasons.
Oh dear. Jack, how do I turn this off?
Press the button.
Which one? Which button, Jack?
The button.
Today, it's just a woman who the audience doesn't even give a shit about yet, going on an angry, bitter rant because fuck men, I guess. This is nasty, divisive, and really fucking lazy, and way too political for a show that claims to be a lighthearted sitcom. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with a Screed. A justified rant can be a great emotional set piece. Here's an example of it done brilliantly.
I'm tired, Trinity. I'm tired of this war. Tired of fighting. I'm tired of this ship being cold, of eating the same goddamn goop every day. But most of all, I'm tired of that jagoff and all of his bullshit.
Now that works, because the audience understand everything that Cypher is saying. We haven't been told it directly, nobody has spoken any of this out loud, but we have seen it. We have seen the cold, metallic, miserable surroundings the crew live in. We have seen the depressing gruel they have to eat, the rags they wear, the ceaseless struggle for survival that is their existence. So we understand Cypher. Not everyone will like him or agree with him, most viewers won't, but everyone will understand where he's coming from, and that's all the writers are trying to accomplish. The problem with the She-Hulk rant is that the writers want the audience to not only understand her, but to agree with her, like her, and sympathize with her. But they have shown none of what she's complaining about. In fact, they have shown things in the show that demonstrate the opposite of what She-Hulk is moaning about. The writers are trying to get the audience on side with a few paragraphs of feminist hackery that could have been copied and pasted from a Guardian article. This scene really exposes the writers as the diversity hire hacks that they are. It reminds me of a recent singing performance from a pop star who, in a previous, better time, would have been working at a drive-thru instead of recording and releasing professionally produced music.
I bet that she knows Billy Joel, 'cause you played her uptown girl. You're singing it together now. I bet you even tell her how you love her in between the chorus and the verse. Yeah, I know you get deja vu.
But unfortunately, we live in an age where talent is now a minor consideration in the hiring practices of major corporations. There are two particularly awful lines from the Screed that I want to look at. The first is this one.
When incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me, I do it pretty much every day, because if I don't, I will get called emotional or difficult, or I might just literally get murdered.
Yes, apparently mansplaining is murder now. But that's not even the worst line. This is...
When incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me.
She-Hulk does not like it when men who she deems incompetent try to explain something related to an area that she believes herself to be expert in. So expert that no one has the right to even attempt to explain an aspect of it that she may not have a full grasp of. This isn't justified anger, it's prideful, unjustified arrogance. Arrogance blocks the path to learning. Anyone with this attitude will isolate themselves professionally, develop an ossified way of doing things, and ultimately stagnate and go into decline. You need to have an open mind to the criticisms, ideas, and yes, explanations of other people. If you disagree with them, fine. Figure out why they're wrong and you've learned something. You might even explain it to them why they're wrong, and if you're nice about it, they will have learned something too. Or if the mansplainer is right, great. By listening to him and taking what he is saying into consideration, you have improved your mind and your professional abilities, and your professional relationships will improve as a result. But She-Hulk is having none of that. She already knows everything. She don't need no man to explain anything to her. This is a disgusting attitude. And maybe if the writers of this show had rejected this attitude themselves and invited a few experienced men into the writer's room to help them out with the script, this show wouldn't be such a steaming pile of unwatchable shite that is failing miserably on Disney Plus and currently has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 39%. The worst part of this abysmal show for me is its central corporate feminist message. She-Hulk says that she doesn't want to be a Hulk because she has a life to get back to. But I'm looking at her thinking, what fucking life? You're a 10 a penny lawyer working for the DA in the hope that one day you'll get picked up by some soulless corporate law firm so you can work on the 40th floor of a hideous building in the middle of a hideous city and sue a broke family at the behest of some corporate giant because they used an image of a popular children's superhero character in a campaign to raise money for childhood cancer research. You're single, childless, and don't seem to have anything going on outside your job. Not your career, your job. Because that's all it is, a fucking job, a shitty job. The word career is a bullshit word, pushed by corporations and peddled by feminists to trick people into thinking they are doing something meaningful by throwing their lives away working in a box for greedy assholes who would just as soon toss them out on their ass as shake their hand and give them a promotion. This feminist notion that the greatest thing a woman can do is pursue a career is an evil idea that is designed to turn human beings into units of cheap corporate production that are easy to tax. It's an evil message, and anyone that embraces careerism over life, man or woman, is making a mistake. The women who made this show, and yes, they're all women, didn't even consider the notion that they are in a position of responsibility. A responsibility to bring a much-loved comic to the screen, to respond to the expectations of the fans of that comic, to enhance the MCU's reputation and brand image, to invest the $500 million Disney sunk into this disaster to create a show that will have long-term value, and most importantly, to make a good TV series that many people will be able to enjoy. The witch coven that is running this show could have used the amazing opportunity that many, far more talented people will never have to use a large budget to do something great. Instead, they decided to spend almost $500 million, $25 million an episode plus marketing, creating a feminist Screed. Because these people, these NPC hacks who like to brag at their wine parties about being writers, but who never actually read books, these talentless nobodies that are basically identical in thought to millions of other drones fed through the college to corporate pipeline, they had to make this garbage. They couldn't help it because at their core, they are evangelical wokists. They get the same feeling of euphoria from injecting feminist skag into their media products as junkies get from sticking a needle into their decaying veins. It feels good and righteous to use entertainment as a giant accusing finger pointed at the viewer and a mouthpiece that tells them,
I'm fucking better than you, okay? Much better than you. You are garbage, okay? You're garbage. I'd rather be a social justice warrior than a piece of fucking shit.
And Disney are a fucking disgrace for allowing this to happen and for giving this much money and a pretty good, well-loved classic comic book IP to a gaggle of diversity hire rookie chumps. This has to stop. Media companies need to stop hiring talentless morons just because they embrace the message and tick the right boxes. Lucasfilm are doing it, MCU are doing it, DC were doing it until about 5 minutes ago. Disney always do it now. CW did it until they literally went belly up. This practice has decimated the American comic books industry and it's killing American culture. If George Lucas were a young film school graduate today, he wouldn't get to make a movie, neither would Francis Ford Coppola, or Martin Scorsese, or James Cameron, because they're all straight white men. A generation of great, talented young men are being wasted because of a destructive ideology that demands that immutable characteristics be the first consideration in all things. She-Hulk is everything that is wrong with Hollywood today. She-Hulk is just the latest victim to be harvested from the world of creative art, dragged into the woke torture chambers to be tormented and defiled for a while, before being tossed out like garbage once it's widely despised and the IP is no longer worth anything. The same treatment currently being experienced by Lord of the Rings, and She-Hulk won't be the last IP to be chewed up and shit out by the Hollywood Leviathan. This isn't going to stop, and nothing is safe. Thanks for listening, subscribe, and don't forget to spend $100 million creating a CGI like button that you would pay money not to be in the same room as.